delighted to support you in your strategic thinking conversations over the next 45 minutes. You know, strategic thinking really, when we think about ourselves working in collaboration, right? Strategic thinking is really co-creating. If you think of the difference between taking a lump of clay and forming a pot yourself, you'd say, I made that pot. If you had a lump of clay and 6 people got together, you'd say, we made the pot. And that's really what strategic thinking is all about, is really how we want to make the pot together, how we'll create together. So what we say is that strategic thinking is really an authentic conversation in which we co-create the future that we hope for most. That future is the vision that you created this morning in your session with Linda. So this session is really a continuation where you will work together to continue fleshing out the framework that supports your collaboration. So on the table, there are a couple blank sheets of paper, and there should be some markers. I'd like you to think about this as kind of strategic thinking, macaroni grill style. And, you know, the idea here, right, is that great ideas, you got to capture them and get them down. You know, one of the best examples of that in our city is Maestro Schermerhorn and Alan Valentine, as the story goes, together at Nashville with the idea for our symphony center sketched out on the back of a napkin. And so, you know, we have to make our conversation, we have to make our ideas visible. And particularly for a collaboration, what everyone wants to do is contribute your knowledge, your wisdom, your ideas, and so on, contribute those to the center, and then work together to notice the patterns, the insights, and so on, the compelling ideas that are taking shape. So making that conversation visible is really important. So you've got a sheet of paper to do lots of doodling and capturing notes on. Get those things down as you're talking. You'll be retaining that. We also have your vision charts from this morning, so you can continue working with those. The other sheet of paper that you have, what you'll do is by the end of this session, you'll have a chart that with your mission, right? The purpose that we exist for, your vision, how the world looks better as a result of executing on your mission with excellence, your strategy, how your collaboration carried out that mission to realize your vision, and then hopefully a start at least on a few major milestones, some of the accomplishments that you know you'll need to achieve to carry out as you're carrying out your strategy. This is what you'll end the session with today. To support you in your conversations, your strategic thinking together, you have 2 handouts on the sheet. One is an 11 by 17 that folds out, and then the other is an outline of questions that come from a process we call World Cafe. And this is simply a process that supports people to engage in conversations to shape the future that they hope for most. And I think that's the purpose of your collaboration. Together you want to shape a better future. And you already have an idea of the vision of what that future looks like. Now the question is, how are you going to get there? So to get started, what I'd like to do is to give you a scenario to just reflect on a bit individually, and then what you'll do is go to a group conversation, which is outlined on page 2. You'll go to a group conversation to share what comes to mind for you. And what I'm about to say is also described on the bottom of page 1. So time travel with me for a moment. I'd like you to imagine that it's 2020. It's 5 years in the future, and the vision that you have designed together, the vision for your collaboration, has actually come to pass. The vision that you came together to achieve is actually happening. How do you know it's happening? What is it that you can see? What is it that you hear that tells you that you know it's happening? What made those results possible? How were you able to bring about the things that you see in that vision? Take a moment individually to reflect on that. Your vision has come to pass. What do you see and hear that tells you that it's come to pass? And how did you get there? Get that in mind individually. Jot some notes down, doodle, draw. Just get your ideas to mind, capture them. And then turn to page 2 and get started on the conversation outline that's described on the top of page 2.
Conversations for just a moment, which is the hardest thing to do when colleagues who are devoted to a shared mission and purpose are in great conversation. Really hard to interrupt, and I want to be really mindful of your time. What we want to do is a brief check-in with each group, and what we just want to hear is, so far, what are a couple of the things that you have settled on that you would see and hear if your vision has become real? And what's taking shape so far as how you would be able to bring those results about. So just a check-in as far as what you're working toward and how you're going to actually work together to get there. Let me give you a minute to talk about that and set your reporter up to share that with the group. Okay? So about a minute, and then I'll check back in with you.
The social norm that we're looking for is the increase.
Okay. Are you guys ready for a quick readout? It's a check-in. It's just a progress check. So, you guys about ready? Mm-hmm. Just a progress check? Okay, great. You all ready? Okay. So let's come back together. Quick question before we hear from everyone's readouts. Just a quick question. What do you notice about your conversations? What do you notice about what's happening?
Exciting.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's escalating, right? Yeah. So notice that as you're doing your work together. Notice the times when you're really leaning in, you're excited, you're energetic, and particularly when those times are happening, notice what you're talking about, right? Make sure you get that down. Also notice the times where, as a group or maybe individually, you might be kind of checking out, mind is wandering, energy is low, and notice what's happening there too, because that's also useful, right? Oftentimes, we're talking about doing something that maybe is a default strategy. And by that, I mean it's something that we think that maybe people who are doing this would be expected to do, but our heart's not really in it, and we don't really believe it's a solution, right? So watch out for those default strategies that you don't have a lot of energy around, because those can be things to set aside and replaced with innovations. So pay attention to that energy in the conversation as well as the content. So what we're hearing about right now is just, how do you know that what you dreamed of is happening, and how were you able to make the dream come true? Who wants to give us a quick readout first? Where are you so far? Okay.
We see a future in which people who are homeless for a shorter period of time. They're connected to income sources and insurance. The shelters look different than they do right now. They're not housing for long term. And there is affordable housing that people can be linked to, that they can afford. And how are we going to get there? Through identifying the most vulnerable, chronically homeless people that are high utilizers of hospitals as they enter the hospital. And by identifying available resources that can be linked to the people to move them and connect them with the housing, permanent housing. And in that process also, by creating an inventory, we will find out where the gaps are, fill those gaps. For example, mental respite.
Thank you.
But always hands for each other, right? Yeah. So the thing about your vision, your mission, your vision, and your strategy is that they really should form an instruction manual for the actions to take in the present. You know, think about it. If you buy a bike, you have a picture of the finished bike and all of its parts, right? And then that tells you what to start on. So that's how your mission, your vision, and strategy should work together as an instruction manual that informs the positive, doable actions you can take in the present. Who's next? Okay. All right.
Okay, so our vision is that 5 years from now, there will be established new community norms around protecting children, and we'll also see population health comes, an improvement in health and an improvement in health outcomes across all adult populations, let's just say, in Davidson County. We're also going to see a broader, more broadly informed public around recent developments in brain science and child development and the impact that stress and resilience can play in long-term adult outcomes. In 5 years, what we would hope to see is that the kinds of typical groups, organizations that adults who care for children are interacting with have a sense of what a trauma-informed environment looks like. From going in to reapply for food stamps to teachers in a primary elementary setting. Come on, you guys jump in.
Yeah, okay.
Healthcare workers, definitely folks across that whole spectrum. That they would have, if they weren't actually actively practicing those concepts, that they would have more information. They'd be more informed than they are now. Okay. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Some of the milestones that we came up with were, to start, just to capture and build on the momentum around this topic that's already out in our community, and to use that to actually gather and establish what we've referred to as our circles of influence. Then the next one would be effective branding, messaging, and broader dissemination. And Angie, by way of example, sitting here said, so it's kind of like Got Nurturing, like the Got Milk campaign, then the idea would be, that's branding, messaging. You all, other people know that better. And then the one that we really got stopped on, and it's worth a lot of conversation, is what is the baseline now in this community? And so if we were to, we need to capture currently what are the current social determinants of health in this community, and then where would we like those, what would we like that to look like 5 years down the road? That's as far as we got in 15 minutes.
All right. Hands, yeah. So this process of talking about both.
Then
why we exist, what the world that we're looking to bring about through our collaboration, and then how we worked together to get there, right? Because we can make the decision, we can make the choice for how we work together, but it only happens when we talk about it. And oftentimes what we tend to do is jump into what are the actions we're going to take, what can we get started on, right? Without saying, okay, so what's our collective, what's our shared purpose, and how is it that we work together, right? Is it okay to use the word? I know I'm a consultant. I'm going to use the word synergy, but really, it's true. It's true. This whole idea, right, of what does it look like for us to work together in a way that is out of an alignment of our strengths. And Peter Drucker said this, right? Leadership is about creating an alignment of strengths in ways that make weaknesses irrelevant. Collaboration, that's the essence of collaboration is an alignment of strengths around a common vision, right? In ways that make any weaknesses irrelevant. Thanks. How about this group? You guys ready?
So as agencies working within the community of faith, we certainly feel like we're stronger together, and we feel like there are gaps in our services. And so kind of our vision 5 years from now is that we would see kids that are academically sound, spiritually grounded, physically and emotionally healthy. And we've talked through various software options that we can use and data usage to be able to track these kids and be able to provide a continuum to where these kids are known, not just in our agency, but across these different agencies of faith. And so that was one of our priorities. We also want to see a call to action 5 years from now. We envision these kids being in a place to give back. And so that's a real tangible outcome where you see kids being plugged back into our volunteer programs, counselor and training programs, and whatnot. And so some of our milestones, we all have shared transportation needs that we'd like to see addressed. We'd like to see this coordinated referral process, and then just this integration within our reporting and kid track system that we would put in place.
All right, thanks. Dan. So a helpful tool in strategic thinking is to really, you know how sometimes when you're thinking the same thing somebody else is, you're thinking yes, yes, yes. We don't often say it out loud though because we think, well, yeah, we're thinking the same thing. What's important for us when we're doing this thinking together is to check out and let others know when we think we're thinking the same thing so that we actually know we're thinking the same thing, right? To understand where differences might be, differences of understanding, differences of language, and so on, right? So if one of us says hot, we might think spicy food, we might think, warm outside, we can think any number of, right? Words are abstractions. So as we're doing this work together, creating a common language, because our words make our worlds, right? This group talked about brain science. So brain science is, right, we make the world that we live in, the reality that we live in through the words that we use and the way that we talk about both the future that we're working toward and the way that we do that work together. So here's what I'd like to give you the opportunity to do in just in about 5 minutes is you worked with, here it is right here. So you worked with Linda on your vision statement. And what you've done now is you've created a set of vision indicators, specific outcomes to work toward, right? Those are those measurable things you talked about. And then you also talked about how your collaboration will achieve results, and a few groups even got to a few milestones. What I'd like to have you do in the next 5 minutes is to create a chart that looks just like this one, filling in your current mission statement, your purpose statement as it exists right now, your vision statement, and you've got your charts from your work with Linda, so your vision statement and a few of those vision indicators, your definition of how you're going to work together, your strategy, and then if you got to milestones, great, put those on the chart also. Take just 5 minutes to do that. Is that okay? Make sense? Okay. Raise your hand. You want more time.
There's an issue, and they have different, let's go back to the treatment where we have different protocols.
Okay, so I'm pausing you now to invite you back together because it really is important for you to continue moving on in your day. And I want to be respectful of your time. And gosh, I would love to if we could just continue having you do this work and flesh your plans out fully. You're going to continue doing that. Today, this session, your session with Linda was the 50,000-foot jet view. This was the 15,000-foot helicopter view. You're going to get into the rubber meets the road view later today. So what you've got again now is work in progress. The thing to know about collaboration,
Before I
right?
take off, I had a question.
Strength connected to strength unleashes the power to perform. So the idea behind a collaboration is to create a strengths-based alignment in ways that allow you to perform with excellence, carrying out this mission and collective strategy that you're creating. Strength connected to hope unleashes the power to transform. So through your collaborations, you'll connect the strengths that are present in your collaboratives in ways that bring about that vision that you hope for most to transform the lives of the people who you are here to serve and who you're dedicated to support. I wish you all the best in doing that. Take your charts and your notes with you so you can continue building on this work throughout the rest of the day. All right? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.